Jervois Rd, Ponsonby, and I think Hannah Elaine is here to report on it.
See you, Warwick. Thanks. I hope you don't mind me inviting Warwick to this meeting.
Warwick?
Just McNaughton, who's just here.
Is that someone else coming?
Yes.
Why they here?
Oh, 714. Oh, is it? Oh, 914. 914, sorry. It's 914.
Okay.
Yeah. I struggle to remember my work
You
numbers.
ready?
Well, I thought that. Here they come. Here they come. Sorry.
You just switch the microphones.
Yes.
Thank you.
Kia ora koutou, board. Kia ora chair. We're here to speak to the report on the service property optimisation of 19 Jervois Road. I'm Hannah, you've heard from me many times before. These are my colleagues from Panuku who will introduce themselves and take the report as read and answer any questions you have.
Whoa, excuse me. You're actually on my stuff.
Right, questions from members?
Just a minute.
Graham?
Now, in a confidential workshop, we discussed the fact that should heritage protection be applied to this property,
Yes.
there would be, I will use just the term significant reduction
Sorry,
in the.
could you speak into the centre? I can't.
Oh, sorry, Richard. There could be a significant reduction in the price. Is it possible for any heritage protections to be applied to this that may be transferred out should the property be redeveloped?
Through the chair, I think we put this question to our heritage associates. They're speaking on behalf, I hope I'm correct. It is the site that is heritage, that is significant. It is, the site is significant because that is where Michael Joseph Savage signed his parliamentary papers. Yeah, and because the architect Tibor designed it as a site, as a whole space, which was, that's how modernist architecture works. It never stands on its own. So I guess, in short, my answer's no.
You're saying the whole built environment, not, yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Sarah?
Thank you so much, and I'm so sorry for dashing out, and I hope it's not the same question that you've just answered. I just got the end of that. But we've heard about Leys, and we've also heard about using that entire site. I wonder, can you talk to whatever happens with the site, how it would feed into the work that will happen around Leys? Is that a sensible question? Sorry, it's not something I'm entirely across.
So they're separate sites, and they're separated by other properties that aren't owned by us. So they're quite distinct. They're in the same block, but they're not adjoining at all.
So I think the only connection is the financial one. That proceeds from the sale of this, because it's an endowment property, can, should we wish, be put towards the cost of the renovation and restoration of Leys.
Just a small correction, not because it's an endowment property,
Okay.
but because it's in service.
Because it's
In service.
okay. Oh, it's
So this is
actively in service.
It is, as a
Okay.
community lease.
Right. Yep. Okay. Thank you for
I have
that.
a question.
Yep, go ahead.
I was wondering when you were proposing that this building be sold and whether any conditions can be applied to the notice of motion to only do the sale when we actually have resource consent for the new Leys Institute, so that we're buying in the same, selling and building in the same market.
Okay, I think there's a couple of questions in there, and I'll get Panuku to speak to the legal parts of it. In terms of Leys Institute, to even do the detailed design, we need capital. So it's not that we can wait till later. We need that capital now so that we can start the design of the building. So this we are already in the same market.
Through the chair, the property is subject to an offer back requirement under the Public Works Act. So while the Public Works Act is not explicit as to the timeline for the offer back, the expectation, according to precedent, is that you don't hang around. Once the motion has been passed, we would endeavour to track down the successor in title of the former owner and offer the property back to them really as soon as possible.
So this resolution or some form of it would need to be endorsed by the governing body first before you do it, or is that entirely within our orbit?
The local board has the delegation to approve the property for disposal under the optimisation process.
Where will the rest of the money go? Because it won't all be going towards a design. Some of it will probably go into other projects right now. Is there some way of equating the value of the property as it stands in today's market with what we should receive in 3 years' time or 2 years' time when we start building? The last thing we want is to not have enough when it comes to the crunch.
Through the chair, all sale proceeds of 19 Jervois Rd are proposed to go towards the restoration of Leys Institute, as well as other properties that we've spoken about before. The restoration of Leys will cost a lot more than what we'll get for the sale of this if you agree to the sale.
Sorry, may I ask another question?
Yes, by all means.
Is there other buckets of CapEx that we can use for the design of this library so that we don't have to sell until we are ready to build?
Good question.
There is some seismic funding that may be included. Am I understanding that you'd like to postpone the sale of 19 Jervois Rd as long as possible?
That's her view. I mean, I don't know what each individual member thinks.
Look, the answer is I'm not really, I don't know. I don't know. In terms of project management, it's good to have the money available as soon as we need it, rather than having to postpone a part of the project while we wait for the sale.
It's good to keep making money on the property too.
Any other questions?
Yes, it was around the water fountain, I wondered whether, in your view, more people would benefit from the heritage value of the water fountain being put into a different place versus the heritage value of keeping the site as is but being in private ownership.
Through the chair, I have no view on that. I'm not an expert in heritage. Our heritage team's view is that it is best, more heritage value will be retained if the fountain is retained on site.
Any other questions?
Sorry, I do have one more question.
Yep, go for it.
In the consideration of this, the National Policy Statement of Urban Development significantly increases the development potential and price of properties in this area that will manifest in real terms probably at the end of next year. So what are the chances of selling it at a reduced price to protect the heritage that then is not protected and will lead to a massive private profit without us getting enough money to restore the Leys?
Good question.
Through the chair, I suppose I'd just point out that the more you trammel the property rights of an owner or a potential owner, the lower the value you will realise. I would also point out that property markets go down as well as up, and that we are about to enter a period where interest rates will go up and the flow of money is likely to be restricted. So it is just as possible that if we wait until the end of next year, the property market will have changed, and that will, if you like, cancel out any additional value that will be realised once the government's position on intensification sort of comes into effect.
Sarah?
Thank you. I had a really interesting meeting with Assurance Services over the Auckland Airport book build, which is, not something you need to know about, other than in it they said, council can't be speculating. We can't make decisions around speculating. Can you talk to that in relation to Alex's question?
I'm not sure I'm really qualified to answer that question. I'm here to advise on the offer back requirements and really the effect of heritage requirements on value. Council is not a property speculator though, but council needs to steward its assets in such a way that it returns the best value possible for the ratepayer.
Like they did with the city council building.
Well, sorry, can I just clarify? It's interesting. I'll pick that up further with regard to the Auckland Airport bit build, because that cost us $60 million in my view. Or more importantly, people that know what they're talking about's view. So yeah, more on that later. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I will move that the Waitemata Local Board receive the 19 Jervois Rd Community Service Provision Findings Report in Attachment A, endorse the relocation of Plunkett and Ponsonby Toy Library Services, recommend the Council offer providing advice and support to Plunkett and to Ponsonby Toy Library for the relocation of their services, approve the closure of the women's public toilets located at 19 Jervois Road, approve the proposed disposal of 19 Jervois Road, Ponsonby, subject to the relocation of services in accordance with the Service Property Optimisation Policy, with proceeds of sale proposed for reinvestment as a contribution to the restoration of Leys Institute Library and Gymnasium. Conditions of sale providing protection of historic heritage. Should the property be sold on the open market, require the purchaser to retain the Michael Joseph Savage Memorial Fountain on the site in a publicly visible position. Thoroughly consider the feasibility of incorporating the Tibor Donna designed canopies of the Plunket Rooms and Women's Restroom in any proposals for site redevelopment, and not object to a possible future Category B heritage scheduling plan change. The terms and conditions to be approved under the appropriate Eke Panuku Development Auckland Board delegation, and note that a start has been made on developing a detailed business case for the seismic strengthening of the Leys Institute Library and Gymnasium, and the board requests that restoration work on the site commence as soon as practicable. Is there a seconder? Seconded, Sarah. Okay, speaking to that, we are in a dilemma in the sense that it's a very high priority for us to have the Leys Institute and Gymnasium restored as soon as possible. That's really important to us. But secondly, particularly in the light of the debate about the impact of the National Policy Statement on Urban Development, potentially having on the character of Ponsonby and surrounding areas, to not simply sell this to the highest bidder without any directions or constraints in order to protect what is a very significant heritage, both in respect of what is a very important site for one of our major leaders, and also a very important building in terms of a leading architect. So I think that we've got the balance right, in my view, in agreeing to the sale, but doing that. I would have hoped that by now we'd have had an indication from the governing body about how much we need to raise in order to close the gap in funding to achieve the restoration of the Leys Institute. Sometimes I feel when we're considering these property sales, I feel as though we have to sell the family silver in order to retain the gold that the Leys Institute represents. So that's a dilemma that I feel, and I think this is the best balance that we achieve on it. I think that both Plunket and the Ponsonby Toy Library Service are very important services for that community, and it is appropriate for us to give what advice and support we can to relocate their services within that area of Ponsonby, St Mary's Bay, Herne Bay, Freeman's Bay. I'm a great campaigner for keeping public toilets, but I think the report indicates that there are enough in the area, and this one is not particularly visible at the moment. I think that hopefully we'll get an idea of this, and I think we need to show good faith to the council in terms of increasing the likelihood that the amount we have to raise will be a realistic amount that we can achieve without going too far into the family silver to achieve it. And so I think it's important that we do what we can to ensure that the Michael Joseph Savage Memorial Fountain and the canopies are retained, and that if a future amendment to the unitary plan, which is going to be needed for the implementation of the National Policy Statement on Urban Development, hopefully they'll be identifying some buildings for heritage protection as that intensification occurs, and that it should not be objected to if it is found that that's appropriate. And although it's not your responsibility, I'm talking to the staff who've provided this excellent report, thank you for the work. We need to give a signal that we're fully in support of the detailed business case being developed with urgency, and the restoration work commenced as soon as is practicable within the unfortunately somewhat elephantine processes of the local authority. So that's my recommendation. Other speakers?
I have an amendment
Uh-huh.
when it's appropriate.
Yes, I guess the sooner we have an amendment, the better, so we can all respond to it before we speak.
Please advise if actually it's better to handle this by voting on this by division. But I would just propose removing sections, and I'm sorry, is it possible to see the motion on the screen? Because it's just shifted. Thank you. I propose to lose conditions 2 and 3 because I need a seconder. That's what I propose. Anyway.
Okay, is there a seconder for that amendment?
Can I just question a point of conduct?
Yeah.
I mostly agree with Alex's, but I actually have a slightly different amendment. Now, if Alex's amendment was, say, to lose, could I then amend a similar one?
We go back to the original
Would you like to
motion.
make a friendly amendment to my friendly amendment?
May I suggest retaining D2, conditions of sale providing protection of historic heritage for the Michael Joseph Savage Memorial Fountain, and then D3 is changed so everything after publicly visible position is deleted. So that the fruit of the fountain is protected, but not other parts.
Right. And can it go somewhere else in that view?
No.
You're the one who wants to delete it completely.
Yeah. So you either proceed with your original amendment, or you change it to what Graham has suggested.
Well, I would just change it to what Graham said, but I would say on a site in a publicly visible position.
No, that's not what he's moving.
I quite like Alex's.
It's moving, but would Graham mind that? Because otherwise no one will be able to use it.
Let's just get the point of, so is this now my amendment? Or
Not
is
yet.
It's still Alex. So Alex, it's over to you.
I think you
Okay,
two
well,
are still disagreeing.
Thank you.
But
So-
I'm mostly agreeing.
Because
I
Why
quite
not
like
seconder, I suppose?
I quite
I am happy to second.
I quite like Alex's amendment as it is.
Sorry, Julie, point to
As
what?
it is.
We
So
better just stick with
therefore-
So you're
process.
seconding Alex's amendment as it is.
Original form. Sorry, that's why I interrupted.
Then once, if we were to defeat that, then Graham can have the opportunity.
I don't know if she was
I
now
think you guys
changed,
need
but-
to discuss this more before you pass any motions.
You told us not to call this.
Okay, so.
No, the whole group, not just the
Alex has
Paulers.
moved an amendment that's been seconded by Julie, and we'll now discuss that. And, yeah, you're moving deletion of 2 and 3. Yep, you can speak to that.
So the reasons I'm suggesting this is that experience has told me, with the cab,
I think it makes
with
it worse.
Carlisle House, that if something goes into the public realm, even with historic protections, it is exceedingly difficult to enforce that protection. And all that happens is that you sell something off at a lower than market price and someone else benefits from it rather than the taxpayer. So I think that we should accept the world as it really is and not as we would like it to be, and sell the property. And because it's not mentioned now on this tool, we can still keep the Michael Joseph Savage Memorial Fountain and put it somewhere where people will actually use it. It's not mentioned now on this, in the amended version of the notice of motion, but if you're not protecting the historic heritage, then there is no reason not to move one's furniture out before selling it.
Maybe you change it to that.
Is it, you finished? Alex?
Yeah, well, I think we have to prioritise whether we really want to save the Leys or whether we want to sort of do a fudge, and I think we should commit to the Leys.
Okay, Julie, do you want to speak at this stage?
Yeah, I guess I just want to say, like, I think that we all have the exact same thought, that we want, you know, that we're trading off in some way between Leys and other things, and we're all going to maybe fall differently on that based on, you know, what we think is the best way forwards. But yeah, I guess I agree with Alex that this is the best way forward.
Yeah, I'm opposed to it. I'm not a defeatist in terms of the protection of our heritage and character. I think it's really important that the public and others see that we're prepared to recognise that must be a component of our decision making. And a question was asked and repeated that in terms of heritage values of the fountain, it is the site that is on, the particular design done by T. Bordona is a combination design that creates the heritage value of it, and I think that we should not pass a resolution which simply gives no recognition that we consider making an effort to protect those features is appropriate. Other speakers? Graham?
I'd like to speak in support of this, although I do think we should protect the fountain regardless of what happens, and moving it to a nearby site is, I think, a good idea. We all agree the Leys is extremely important. I guess the point of difference here is how important is a Category B building when it's put next to a Category A building, and my view is the indication that we have been given in a confidential session, there's a very large difference between that, and I would really like to capture that from the private market and place and put it towards the Leys Institute. Thanks.
Okay. Other speakers? If not, I'll put it by division.
Still putting the amendment, right?
The amendment by division, which is to delete items 2 and 3.
Is Member Christie online?
Yes, I'm sorry I was on mute for a while. I'm going 4.
Member Guncourt?
4.
Member Leoni?
4.
Chair. Against. Member Semblance? 4. Member Crop?
Against.
So that's carried 5 votes to 2, and 161. Thank you. And now we come back to the original resolution with 2 and 3 deleted, and that's now open for debate.
May I move an amendment, please?
Yes.
That the Michael Joseph Savage Memorial Fountain is moved before sale to an appropriate public site and heritage protected.
I'll second that.
Oh, now I've got to try and say it again. Is that-
Take this from 4.
Yes.
It's moved.
To a publicly visible position.
They've got no idea what they're
and
doing.
Given heritage protection.
I don't think we're the body that decides on heritage.
Why don't you just ask for an actual heritage or
Given
architect's
perspective,
opinion on it? What makes you think that they know better?
Just make sure you...
Can I ask a question of clarification?
I'm not sure that you finished drafting it, or have you?
Heritage public and request.
Just to understand.
Be given heritage protection. Thank you. You've got it.
Okay.
And I think Adriana
Stand here.
And moved Graham, seconded Adriana.
Yeah.
You want to ask a question before Graham
Yes.
starts the
When
legal?
when you say publicly visible, do you mean somewhere where people can use it, or just somewhere in the line of sight, but on private ground?
Up on Jervois Rd, possibly. Yes.
So it's in a public space? Okay.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Maybe part of the Leys development.
Yeah.
Maybe think in the round. Maybe get an imagination.
You've got some
Jesus
experts
Christ,
in the
you
room here.
Adriana is seconding that, and Graham.
Yeah.
You guys need to speak to it.
Adriana, do you want to speak to it?
Why don't you ask the people
I
in the room
just
what you
am
worry
for
about them?
retaining heritage as much as possible. Unfortunately, we'll have to, like you said, Richard, sell our silver to take care of our gold. But, you know, I find that the community has expressed how important Leys is for us, so we must fulfill that need.
Why don't you ask them what they think about the fountain as well?
I'll be voting in favour. It's very much a second best, but it's better than nothing, so it's fine. It's an important memorial that we need to keep.
3
May
years.
I, through the chair, may I ask where in the original motion would you like that instead?
Perhaps it should go in as number 6 if 2 and 3 being here, or should it replace
No, 2 and 3 have already gone, so it'll be in 2.
No, number 4.
So conditions of sale, it's not a condition of sale, goes in as a new 2.
Okay.
Okay?
Can I just clarify, so the site cannot be sold until the memorial's moved, is that correct?
No, that's not specific.
So the site would be sold, could be sold, subject to the memorial being moved by
I think
council?
that's what Graham's nodding, so that's
Right.
what he means, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other speakers? Okay, well, I'll just put this on the voices. Those in favour will say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. That's carried. So we now go back to the original resolution. Any speakers? Well,
Yes.
Yes, go for it.
While I think what is now being proposed is quite sensible, I still think there would be a benefit in delaying this until we are closer to building the Leys Institute, so as to ensure that we get the best price for it, and perhaps selfishly, the best price goes towards Leys Institute rather than having its value being whittled over time, and that benefit is just sort of dispersed, maybe around the council and other projects. I think it's a bit of a shame that there isn't sufficient money in the bucket for renewals of libraries, that we cannot find the capital funding simply out of the libraries renewal program, in the light that we're not having improvements in Parnell or Grey Lynn, that there is, that there is so little for our suburban libraries. I think we should find the money to do that work and then hold on. If we're building in the same market, then if the property price goes down, then we can bear that risk. If, however, which is more likely, the property price goes up, we will be better able to pay for the lease if we hold off. So I suggest not proceeding at this time.
Right, any other, no, you haven't spoken on substantive, I don't think.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just to counter that, I do think it should be sold. I know how long council does take to actually put things on the block. Interest rates are going up. I do foresee a slight drop in prices, perhaps not with the NPS. But however, we should get the ball rolling. I do know how expensive seismic consultants can be, so my view is we should start the process now. It is, however, not within the motion, so I don't think it's going with that.
Okay, so I'll put that by division. Oh yes, I'm still going to vote for it, but I think still we do need to sell this property in order to greatly increase the chance that we'll get the lease back.
No,
So,
you don't.
Yes, please.
Stop selling the silver for the gold. Find another way.
Member Christie?
For?
Deputy Chair Bonham? Alex?
Against, sorry.
Member Gunthorpe?
4.
Member Leone? 4. Chair. Member Semblance? 4. And Member Trotton? 4.
And I'm for. Okay, so that's been carried 6-1 by division. And we now come to the local board annual report. Mark Purdy, and thank you.